Hello everyone, good morning. My name is Mustafa Mohamed Boche, and in today's tutorial we're actually going to learn how we can create a simple web server with Node.js. Okay, so the first assumption I'm having is you already have Node installed on your machine. So if you don't, head over to Google and then download Node and then install it on your machine. Next, we're actually going to initialize a new project. Okay, so I'm going to accept everything. The description, I'm going to give it a simple Node.js server. The entry point is going to be app.js. I have a test. Our GitHub, I'm going to push this to my GitHub, so don't worry about that. I'll link the description. I'll link the URL in the description for this YouTube. The keyword, we're going to ignore the author. I'm going to use my name. The license, I'm going to set it at MIT and I'm going to accept this. So the reason why we usually initialize our project is because we might be working with other dependencies and want the JSON, the package.json to track the dependencies that we are working with. Okay, so it is very important if you are building, for instance, a Node application, to always initialize the project so that the dependencies that you install to use your application can safely be tracked. Okay, because at the end of the day you are going to push this on a web server, right? And when you push this on a web server, the server needs to know the kind of modules that you're working with, okay, the dependencies that you're working with, so that it can successfully install those dependencies and have your application running as it's supposed to. So the next thing I'm actually going to do is create the file called app.js, and inside the app.js we are going to require the HTTP module, and we're also going to specify a port that we want to listen onto. So those of you that are coming from Apache, you realize that you listen on port 80, at times port 8080. So every web server definitely listens on a particular port, and it's no brainer or no different from for Node.js. So first, let's define our constant called HTTP. We are going to require the HTTP module, and you should know by now that with ES6 JavaScript, you don't necessarily need to terminate your code. Okay, you can leave it as this, looking like a Python code, and it's fine. Okay, so for me, I currently do not like terminating my code. Just leave it clean as this. You are good to go. The next thing we're actually going to do is specify the port. So what port do we want to listen on to? So maybe we want to listen on port 3000, right? This is great, but it's also essential for you to also specify, for instance, the environment port like this. So what we are saying over here is, if the environment port is set, use that, else we want to use this. And this makes the application much flexible and then elegant. So if you happen to put this application on any hosting platform and their environment port is set, your application gets to use that. Else, if it is not set, it uses what you've stated right over here. Now, when creating, how do you call it, a server, the HTTP module, which is this, actually have a function called, or a member function called the create server, right? So we're actually going to define a variable called server, and we're actually going to assign that particular function to that server. That server itself has a listener, okay, where we're actually going to listen the ports from. So we're going to create this const called server, and we are going to say the http.create server, and this actually takes a function. So I'm going to use the fat arrow function. Okay, so we want to get the request, and I also want to send our response. Okay, so for instance, when someone heads over to the browser and then they type tesla.com or Tesla whatever, and then they press enter, what this is actually doing is, this is actually making a request on behalf of the individual that type. Okay, so this goes to the web and then makes a request, and this is actually going to resolve through, for instance, some IP address which is going to hit a particular location resource, and it's going to return that particular resource. So that particular resource could be a web page like this. So when someone hits nodejs.org, they actually get a web page. So that's the response that they are getting. Or maybe you can hit a particular endpoint and you get, for instance, a JSON file. Okay, so what we're actually going to return is a simple text. So we are going to say the response.end, and then we just say welcome to Node.js, basically, right? So this is all that we are doing, and down here we are going to listen to our server on a port. So we are going to listen on this particular port. We can leave it like this, or we can also add a callback function and then just say console log and then say listening on port. Let's say listening on port, and then we just specify the port. So we are going to save this. We are going to run our application. So the way we run our application is we type node and then we say what, app.js. We specify the file name, which is this app.js. You can see right over here. Then we hit enter. So this is running perfectly. We didn't get any error. So you're saying what, listen on port 3000. So if I come over here and then I type localhost colon 3000, we get what, welcome to Node.js, which is exactly what we specified right over here. Okay, so this is one way of building, for instance, a simple web server, and you can also do this using, for instance, Express. And in the next tutorial, we're actually going to look at how we can create a simple web server using Express. Thank you for having the time to watch this tutorial, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.